All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. And thank you for attending our webinar today. My name is Ashley Limbers, and I'm the marketing lead at Encompass Solutions. At Encompass, we specialize in ERP consulting and implementation to help manufacturers solve challenges, streamline their operations, and to help drive growth. And as a premier partner of Epicor, we deliver tailored ERP solutions that empower businesses to succeed. We are headquartered in North Carolina, and we have been in business for over 23 years, with just a little over 40 staff members around the globe. Our focus is on manufacturing and distribution, primarily using Epicor software. And one of the characteristics that makes Encompass Solutions stands out is that we're very partner focused. We have almost 20 years of experience selling Epicor software while being part of the Premier Partner Program. We have a certified team of consultants that partner with businesses like yours to help with ERP implementations, software enhancements, customizations, and reporting. And today we're exploring the new features of Epicor Kinetic 2024.2, presented by David Sullivan. And just before we get started, today's webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be emailed to you. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box on your Zoom control panel, and we'll bring them up during the Q&A session at the end. We also encourage you to take the survey after today's event. So today's speaker is David Sullivan. He's the senior manufacturing consultant with over a decade of experience at Encompass Solutions, helping our clients grow their businesses and drive costs down using the power of Epicor ERP systems. Before that, he was an Epicor system administrator. So he really understands how these new features, he understands these features that we'll hear about today and how they can help your company. So now, without further ado, we'll go ahead and turn our time over to David.
Hi, folks. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's always great to see customers and even prospective customers reaching out. One of the great things about working in the Epicor universe is they are constantly growing and expanding and adding new features. Part of what we'll see in a little bit is many of the new innovations that we're seeing in this release came from you, customers like yourselves who participated, sent suggestions through the Epicor Ideas platform. And so while Epicor has a very strong direction for the future as they're looking at digital transformation and helping their customer base grow and change with new tools, they're also very responsive. So a lot to talk about today that's very exciting. And really, there's kind of four themes into the today's presentation is going to break down on. And the first one is a new effort on Epicor's part to focus on sustainability. So we're talking about things like carbon emissions tracking, being able to report and see the impact of your shipping in carbon emissions, and kind of especially for those of you working in regulated environments or industries where customers are sensitive to that, the ability to track it down to a part level, right? So there's a whole new suite of features that open up possibilities for us to do inside the ERP system, whereas we might have had to use third-party software programs or even home-built tools to figure that out. So that's you'll see that pop up, and there's some nice innovations around that. The second thing, and I really hope that everyone pays attention to this, your voice in action. 3 or 4 months ago, we did another one of these presentations for the last release. And I think the statistic at the time is all of the suggestions that came out of that release were related to less than 600 ideas submitted through Epicor Ideas. So when you think about them with tens of thousands of customers, probably representing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of users, out of all those people, 600 took the time to really present their ideas. And I don't have statistics this time around, but it's going to be the same thing. So I just want you to carry that idea away with you, that the software is responsive and that at least right now, the community is not overrun, right? So your voice can actually stand out in the crowd. And some of the innovations today, came about because a couple different customers mentioned it as a problem point or a suggestion for improvement or one of those, hey, why doesn't it do it this way? Because it should. And when you present those ideas to Epicor, they actually get read and many of them get added to the roadmap. It doesn't mean they'll roll out tomorrow, But Epicor has a multi-year roadmap for the software, and they're very open to listening to your impact. So things that we're going to see today, the enhancements around the RFQ, the request for quote process, dynamic time fences and MRP, and better PCID processing. Those are three really impactful ones around some complicated modules that are hard to work with. And the solutions they've come out with really do streamline and simplify it. So good for you if you're one of the people that submitted those requests, and I encourage you to think about it and keep your requests known to Epicor. If they don't know you need it, they won't necessarily think about it or build it. Next thing we're looking at, accelerated value with extended solutions. So we're talking about improvements to Quick Ship, Automation Studio, Quick Start CPQ, Epicor's or their 3D configurator. So those are kind of third-party integrations within the software that they've put a lot of time into. And then overall digital transformations, improvements moving into a cloud browser-based environment, much better user experiences. And then some of the tools around the BAQ and SQL processing improvements. So what we see today will be broken around those themes. And again, as Ashley mentioned, if you see something of interest, please shoot a question to us in the comments here. And then due to time, we have about 40 minutes to go through quite a bit of material. We're not going to be doing live demonstrations, but we are very happy to set an appointment with you to give you a live demo. So if you need to see or want to see some of these features in use, you can talk to your account manager, you can email Ashley, you can reach out to me. You'll have contact information at the end of the presentation, but don't be shy about that. We would love to see you embrace the new tools, especially if you're already on Epicor. Take advantage of those new innovations. So we'll go ahead and move on now to some of the new features that are in Core Kinetic, Core being your basic functionality of the software, your core financials, inventory, manufacturing. Starting out with improved PCID shipment process. So PCIDs, package container IDs, it's license plating. It allows you to put a numbered label on a box and put stuff in it and move the box around, or as you're building to pack things into numbered cartons. And they've now created the ability so you can ship PCIDs much more simply, right? Just at the line level on the customer shipment entry, add and select the PCID. You can ship a PCID directly from WIP. So for those of you who are building into containers and you need to track those containers outbound, especially if they have like serial numbers inside of them, you can now do that right from the job. So a make to order scenario. And you can ship PCIDs through the fulfillment workbench now. So this saves a lot of time for users who wanted to use PCID. Maybe you had a couple of issues with it and it added some burden on the back end when you're going to ship. And they've now listened to those voices requesting changes and they've improved them. So I'm excited about that one. It's been a great tool. They've been working on PCID and continuously improving it. And I think it's just going to get better. Dynamic time fence in MRP is a huge deal. For any of you who are working with PO suggestions and MRP job suggestions, you understand the difficulty when you get a lot of clutter and a lot of noise. So dynamic time fence essentially tells you or allows you to tell the system, stop giving me any suggestions until after X date. And so maybe you've already got your shop scheduled for out 2 weeks, or your purchase supply chain is scheduled out 3 weeks. You can just tell the system to no longer show you suggestions inside that window. To just let you push out. So instead of running MRP as of today, you're running it as of February 13th. And again, the real value there is reducing the noise. So your planners, your buyers, your production managers can really focus on the business at hand, which is getting work completed today and shipped today, without having to wade through a bunch of suggestions that aren't going to add value to you. Next one is around an inventory management issue. It's always been a challenge. You allocate inventory for an order, and then you have a more urgent order or something changes, and you had to unallocate it, reallocate it, and walk through a bunch of different steps. Many of those could not be done from a limited account like an MES workstation. So the new functionality allows you to move allocated inventory to new inventory locations. So you can basically move it to somewhere else and to a different order. So as you need to move it around, you're no longer unallocating, moving, reallocating. It just saves a bunch of steps. Automated intercompany sales orders. What we're talking about here is a multi-company environment where you buy and sell from each other. In current state or previous state, one of the, your sister company needed something, they would create a purchase order and you had to take affirmative action. You had to go in every day, go through a workbench and approve each of those requests one by one to turn them into a sales order. And so what this allows you to do is, instead of having to manually approve each one, those purchase orders coming from your trusted trading partner, right, one of your co-companies, parent or sibling companies, those can be converted right into sales orders without that need to review and release each one. So for those of you, it impacts two levels. If you're very busy and you do a lot of intercompany trading, this is going to take a big burden off the people in the supplying company. And it's even better for organizations that don't do a lot, right? So if you're not in the habit of checking every single day, there's that risk that you miss it for a week or 2 weeks because you didn't know that someone from one of the other companies was requesting something. This way, it just shows up as a sales order, easily managed, just as any other new sales order coming in. There's a lot of improvements around the request for quotes. And this is an area where if you're a buyer or you're struggling with supply chain, if you need multiple quotes for materials, or if you have lots of custom materials that go on your engineered jobs, engineered quotes, we should probably set up a time to demo this. It's got a lot of features that has now turned managing RFQs from a very cumbersome tool that drove a lot of people away from even using the module into something much more manageable. So they've made numerous improvements. When they say saves users time and expand the ability to manage RFQs, they really have made a lot of improvements. Updatable BAQ Designer. So this essentially completes the process of migrating the business activity query, that's your query builder inside Epicor, completely migrating it now to be 100% browser-based, cloud-based, without having to go to use the classic screen. So an updatable query allows you to build a query and designate some of those fields as updatable, meaning the users can change them. So for example, you could create one against sales orders that allows you to quickly go through and change the shipping date on all your releases. And that's really useful if you find out, hey, there's a container that's not coming in and these 25 orders all need to be changed. You can build your own little tool and you don't have to come to us to build it for you. Very awesome feature now that it's all they're in the Kinetic browser-based UI. It's just an awesome improvement, just allowing you to move forward and away from having to stay with those traditional classic screens. Carbon cost rollup. So we talked about their focus on sustainability. This is essentially phase one. So you're going to be able to roll up the total carbon cost at the part number level for every product. It's going to allow you to capture that emissions data at the material level, as well as the manufactured items. And eventually, this is going to allow you to report your metrics out to regulatory agencies. And some of you live in states where that, if it's not there, those types of requirements are coming. So Epicor, again, continuously innovating, staying ahead of requirements, and listening to feedback from you, the customers. Other operational enhancements. Process MRP flag with PO suggestions turned off. So when you run MRP, that goes and calculates all of your demand, creates all of those jobs, and then runs a secondary process called PO suggestions that tells you what you need to buy. So this allows you to turn off that second half of the process. Number one, that allows it to run faster. But number two, it means that you can run MRP at night with suggestions. 10 a.m., your planners can make a bunch of changes and run MRP again without suggestions, and allow the buyers to continue the work they've already started based on last night's run. So it really is an empowering tool for planners. Component revisions on BOM listings, you can now show that your BOM report now shows the materials that can be stocked by revision. So if you've got a long life cycle product where your customer takes it through multiple revisions, or you take it through different stages of engineering, you can now track and show this version used Rev B of the subcomponent versus Rev C that's in current production. And then there's now a field on quotes that will capture who entered it, just like on sales orders and purchase orders. Sales orders, quotes, purchase orders can be assigned to a salesperson or a buyer, but there's a separate field that just tells you who did the data entry. And so they've now added that to the quote. Interestingly enough, a month or 2 months ago, I customized that same feature for one of my projects that's trying to go live. So kind of these types of innovations are everyday requests that we run into all the time, and it's great seeing them finally rolled into the software. UX, user experience application improvements. You now have an indicator on a sales order telling you whether there's a substitute part or a complement part that goes along with the parts that you're entering on the sales order. Cost adjustments now have a paste update function, where if you have a bunch of cost adjustments to do, you can copy them out of, do your math in Excel, copy and paste them back into Epicor. So that's awesome to get that on one of those common screens. And then now we have the ability to add specific comments on a supplier price list that will be shown on purchase orders. Prior to this, you had the ability to set a purchasing comment on a part, and it would always print on every PO for that part, regardless of who you're sending it to. Now you have more granularity. You can add those comments on the supplier price list. So when you buy from that supplier, they'll get their own set of comments versus what might be visible if you bought from a different supplier. So again, more granularity for supply chain management. User UX enhancements that are coming out. They've invested in having a more responsive design, especially for mobile devices and tablets. You've got better chart types and filtering. So when you're looking at business intelligence tools, you can fit to screen dock layout, basically build your dashboard so that they pin in one corner of the screen and adapt size to fit and fill based on whichever tool you're working in. And you can personalize your Gantt columns. So when you're looking at, again, mostly on the BI side of things, business intelligence tools. Really cool innovation here, SQL to BAQ Generator. For those of you who have written queries in Epicor, if you're like me, it was amazing to have the BAQ creator because I never knew how to write SQL statements. If you're like any of our developers, you hate BAQs because you can't just take the 30 seconds it would take you to type out a SQL statement, paste it in, and have your query. So they've now added the ability to directly convert a SQL statement into an Epicor compliant BAQ, business activity query. So for those of you who've got really good database administrators on your team, people who are really sharp with SQL, you've got your own internal developers, it just makes it so much easier for them to write those queries. And as you shift to the cloud, browser-based Epicor experience, it means that it's just one more tool set that advanced users can use without needing to stay on premise and host your own servers. So we'll go ahead and move on now. So these are features from our extended solutions, third-party and kind of add-on business applications. Epicor Connected Process Control, CPC, is a system, as you kind of look at the illustration on the screen, really lets you see in a more controlled manufacturing environment, drilling into individual components and kind of having that control system interface back into Epicor. It's got better kinetic integration, showing the materials for the job, better syncing for clocking in and out activity with the kinetic data collection, some improvements around reporting, improvements around task capabilities, and overall user interface, user experience enhancement. So again, as Epicor is moving into the modern manufacturing space, looking at all of those advanced tools that you may use as you're considering automation in your shop, they've got those integrations there, and they don't ignore them as they upgrade the rest of the software, right? And that's really the main takeaway, that CPC got some love this time around. Likewise with the field service management module, this one is actually really exciting. So prior to this, you might have had multiple sites in your system with doing field service departments, and users tied to one of those sites, and routing became very difficult, right? Trying to dispatch who's going to do this work for our customer, which site is it going to come from, and which employee is going to do it. So essentially, from a dispatching standpoint, the field service report is now smart enough, and you have the ability to set up enough parameters so the system knows which site to choose and which resource or technician to assign based on the requirements put into that field service report. Additionally, there's a much better financial control. So on the field service management side, you can essentially use product groups for the work that you're doing that will follow through. And then with those product group controls inside Kinetic, you can, very granularly control how you want those different kinds of service to post to your general ledger, whether that's by team or region or industry or customer group, et cetera. You just have a lot more flexibility to let the service team make a couple of suggestions, from a list of product groups you provided, and then you can control and make sure that those are posting correctly as they come in, go through the sales order and invoicing process. Within Epicor Automation Studio, they've added some new industry templates. Using Paycor, if you're using Epicor to track your human capital management for payroll processes, they've made some improvements there inside their automation windows. They've actually now got a whole integration with Google Gemini that allows you to bring in and use Google's version of artificial intelligence against multiple processes that you've integrated into Epicor. And within QuickShip, they've added an ability to do an unshipment, essentially to make it really easy to say, whoops, that didn't happen. We queued it up, we freighted it, and then the truck didn't come or the order got canceled. So it just kind of saves your shipping department time in rolling those back. In Epicor, you can unship something very easily, but there's a bunch of steps you have to do in QuickShip to reverse those. So again, within their automated solutions, things they're bringing to you, they've been making good investments around those. Grow is Epicor's business intelligence platform. They are now up to over 100 defined integrations. So essentially it's middleware that allows you to go out and connect to all sorts of different things, Salesforce and Google and third-party documents and many, many different platforms. So they've now got connectors into Microsoft Dynamics 365. So if you've got multiple companies that you own and they're not all on Epicor, you're now able to pull data out of those into your Kinetic-based business intelligence tool, so you can roll all those things together. And again, it's allowing you to gather all your data into one place, and that's really what Grow is about. Epicor understands that you're a complex business and that everything can't happen inside your ERP system, but they've got this constant development and Grow to make it easier and easier for you to integrate and again be able to have one set of reporting centralized. Along with that, they've added a number of demo dashboards that you or we, Encompass partners, can use to go look at and demo different content. And essentially being able to share through a URL access, send someone a link to go look at the visualization you're looking at. You kind of look in the bottom right-hand corner. This is what we're talking about. Can you build a single screen with all the different metrics visualized, so at a glance you can look at it and understand the direction and health of the company and make really smart, informed decisions? And so for the last year, they've heavily focused on building and expanding Grow, and they'll continue with that. Moving on to look at Epicor Collaborate, improved communications. So essentially, prior to this, you had two notification streams in the system. You could be using global alerts, and those would show up in the little bell icon on the right-hand bottom of your screen. But you had a different icon that included your Collaborate notifications. So they basically rolled those in. So your Collaborate notifications are now intermixed with your global alerts as well. So the user is not having to look in two different places to stay on top of all the alerts that they're looking at. With CPQ. CPQ is Epicor's next wave configurator. It's a visual configurator allowing you to load your 3D designs and models. Customers can make changes on the fly and pick colors and add accessories, and it's all built around 3D models that you're working with. So there was a big investment for Epicor a couple of years ago, buying KB Max, and they're continuing to invest in that. They've added expanded functionality for admins. So basically, you can make search fields and names, naming conventions easier for users to understand. You can connect, detect, and find common problems. And you can now copy complete modules, elements, pages, functions out of one configurator and paste them into another. So essentially, you're building a tool set. When you need a new variation on that, you can reuse those assets that you've already invested in building. They've made some improvements around the visualization enhancements. You're getting better 3D scene rendering. And they've done some other technological improvements, trying to improve your return on investment, your user experience. You can start typing immediately into drop-down fields instead of waiting to select and scroll up and down. And then you can copy and modify BAQ templates. So this would allow you to, for example, query Epicor, pull the complete method of manufacturing from a part, pull it in and modify it to configure a different part. So for those of you working with configurators and in the CPQ space already, every 3 to 4 months, they're coming out with a new set of improvements. So it's great to always watch for improvements in that space. On the financial side, so within financial cores and within Epicor projects, it made it easier to control your different segment IDs and give them definitions within your GL accounts. Standardizing some logic. So when you have indirect costs associated with a purchase receipt, you can now control where those post with more granularity. There's some improvements around project milestone invoicing, and they've given you the ability to have more fields displaying on some of the screens and reports, and they've increased some of the character limits so you can expand and grow. For BizTrack customers, so that's going to be your credit card payment functionality. They've eBiz payment functionality. They've improved that a little bit, and they've eliminated some redundant activities, a bunch of miscellaneous enhancements. So you've been able to add a tariff percentage. Now, when you get your invoices, you can get them by a ship via code or an FOB code, Incoterms, tracking number. If you're trying to find and invoice a specific shipment or a specific set of shipments and you don't want to pull all of them in, improvements on bank statement processing. Miscellaneous charges can now be set up in multiple languages, improve national account relationships. There's a lot there, right? And so we'll send out a PDF of the slideshow and you'll be able to reach out. I'm not a financials consultant. If you have any questions, though, please post them in the chat. Then we'll talk about at the end of the question and answer period. And we do want to get those answers for you. Improvements in country-specific functionality, and I'm not going to go through all of these. Just understand that if you're trading internationally, every region you work in has their own accounting, legal rules and accounting rules that you need to follow. Country-specific functionality is Epicor building modules or partnering with companies that build modules that allow you to trade in other places. So within Malaysia, for example, they've got a new ISV partner, Storeco, to do e-invoicing, right? So if you do trade anywhere, Australia, Colombia, Germany, Indonesia, Mexico, Peru, Poland, Vietnam, those all got some updates. And last 2 rounds of updates, there were significant improvements in the country-specific functionality packages. Financial reporting, FP&A has actually gotten some awesome improvements. So you now have some Excel-based design improvements, add custom columns. You could do calculations inside the reports instead of having to go back out and recalculate. There's improvements around the user interface and the user experience. And the slide is kind of garbled down here. Essentially, they've made it easier to build your reports and inside the reports to work with them to get sub-calculations without having to go back and do a redesign. And they're supposed to be loading faster now as well. So for those of you on the financial side, working with the FP&A tool, I would definitely look at the release notes there. You'll see some demos on Epic Web where you can see the new features in action. So here we move into requisition management, procurement administration. So this is working with precise business solutions. So essentially you have you've got a procurement dashboard, and they've worked around making it easier to process purchase orders using custom forms, working with text that's being passed back and forth, and to make future dated revisions on existing requisitions, managing supplier prices. Epicor Cash Collect, automate credit management and customer communications. Basically, you've now got a single sign-on experience. You can duplicate payments, basically process all of your cash collections much more easily. And it's easier to resolve issues with payments as they're more accurate with better integrations with various payment processors. And notice at the bottom, they have now exceeded $100 million in payments through Epicor Cash Select. So it's obviously an area that's very important to them. If that's part of your business, again, reach out to your account manager or Ashley, and we can get a demo for you of the new functionality. Avalara, your Avatax. They've improved some workflows, advanced search and reporting. If you're not currently using Avalara to track tax certificates, process your taxes inside the software, ping Ashley. We've done recently webinars with Avalara, and there's a lot of value there. And if you are currently working with Avalara, I would say talk to your financial consultant and make sure that you are aware of any of the changes that have happened and some of how those workflows can maybe improve things for you. So IP&O, this is formerly SmartSoft. So this is essentially your forecasting software. They've created the ability for you to have multiple cell adjustments. You can create custom calendars. So when you're trying to create a forecast, rather than blindly picking and kind of guesswork, if you're using the IP&O, formerly Smart Software, it's telling you predictively what your spend is going to be on raw materials, et cetera. And you can now base that around a custom calendar. So you can select a date range you want to use as a reference point. It makes it much easier to conveniently make adjustments. So you can look at what period of historical data you want to look at. You can apply mass changes for all of the driver fields and essentially integrate those histories and forecast into periods. And I apologize, at some point I broke Ashley's slideshow. So we're having some text cut off there. That was my bad. Sorry, Ashley. QuickShip is Epicor's owned product for integrating with UPS WorldShip, FedEx software, LTL. They've now got better tracking tools, so you can look at your profit and loss. So as you're looking at your freight profit, your freight charges, what you charge customers for it, et cetera. You can now track shipment and delivery status directly through QuickShip, and overall it makes this a better experience for your customer service and your shipping teams. And again, they are now fully certified and caught up with UPS and FedEx annual certifications from 2024, moving on to 2025. And a particularly cool issue, and it's kind of down at the bottom, again, tying back into Epicor's sustainability focus. You now have, with the LTL model, the ability to look in and choose carriers and routes based on, or at least have visibility to carbon emissions based on the routes the trucks would take. So if that is an important part of your business, you're obviously going to focus and manage that on your product level. And you can now even look to the delivery logistics side and come up with a concept of your total carbon output. Within Epicor Commerce, it's always a happy area with improvements. So they've done some improvements on the user interface for theming. If you're in the automotive industry, they actually gave you a lot of love this time around. Users can now search by barcode to reduce time for searching and finding products. There's an ability to have a carton-sized picker within QuickShip, so customers can get very accurate shipping estimates. And they now offer Amazon Pay as an e-com payment process. So Google Tag Manager has now been added, which allows you to do some really advanced tracking and kind of pay attention to users as they browse the sites, as they touch their shopping carts, identify them to whatever extent Google tagging allows, but to also identify repeat customers or return customers. And they've signed up with Fastly CDN, and I saw about 20 minutes on that actually, and it's a little bit above my head as far as all of the web-based security, but it essentially is giving you much faster alerts if you have peaks and spikes in activity. Now, those could be natural for some reason. Your product went viral and 100,000 people show up. It could also be one of those DDoS attacks. So Fastly is now partnered with Epicor in bringing an additional level of protection so that your sites stay safe and don't get taken down by malicious actors. ECM, formerly known as DocStar. So this is really awesome, coming in November. And I don't know if that was November 2024. I think it was. I hope it's not November 2025, but that would have been November 2024. Essentially creating a community solution library. I think it's fantastic when Epicor allows the user community to get together. So essentially you can build workflows, content reports, et cetera. Those are open sourced, and you can now share them with the community, which means you can also borrow from the community. So those of you who are ECM users, I'd recommend that you get out there and join that and participate, right? And the more people working together, the better for everyone. There are improvements to form enhancements, making it easier to basically validate against your forms and making sure that things submitted are compliant. And they've added translations for German and Thai. So if you've got international trade, they'll be able to navigate ECM in their own native language. On the supplier portal side, and those of you who are not currently using the supplier portal, I would at least put a pin in it and ask, set up some time in 2025 to look into it. But it essentially gives you a portal where you can communicate directly with your suppliers. They can log in, look at open purchase orders. They can suggest changes to pricing and delivery dates and quantity, et cetera. Then you have the ability to go through and approve those from the portal, and those changes get automatically made inside Kinetic, right? So it's really a fantastic way of communicating out to your suppliers and kind of partnering up in a way that's very efficient for your suppliers and very efficient for you as well. So we're going to now move on and talking about some of the changes with cloud-based, and understand that in 2026, Epicor is going to move to a cloud-only, browser-only environment. So there's a sunset on the classic screens in the client. So they've made significant improvements in the cloud experience. They've improved the architecture. They've now created self-service tooling, and this is fantastic, right? So in the past, if you added a user-defined field, you had to submit a ticket and wait for them to regenerate a data model till you could put it on a screen or use it in a report. So things like that, database refreshes, you can now self-service and launch yourself. So it puts you more in control of things that you used to have access to if you ran Epicor on your own servers. And so I think that's awesome that that they're moving safely. Obviously, they don't want someone else who happens to have a business on your server crashing things, right? So there's definitely a sense of control around it, but they're now putting more of that control safely back into your hands, so you don't have to go through Epicor. Because even a 30-minute or an hour delay waiting for someone to do a simple task for you can really interrupt your workflow. And that will, by the way, that's going to be a staged portal rollout. So that'll be happening throughout 2025 as this release comes out. Test ReCoder It's a browser plugin for testing automations. Essentially, it's a tool that used to be Epicor only. They're now making it available to you, your development team, your partner. If you're working with Epicor, we can do this on your behalf. It's automated quality assurance, and it's a process of setting up scripts that run through all of your testing scripts on your behalf, looking for the right results so that you can essentially automate testing to make sure nothing breaks in upgrades, because they're on a constant upgrade cycle. So every couple of months, you're moving into a new version of the software. Best in class quality. They're saying it's saving you about 80% of the time on testing. If you're doing all your testing manually, especially if you're pulling in your whole team, it might actually be a bigger return on investment there. And again, that will be rolled out in phases. Epicor Learning Center has gotten some awesome improvements. We're close to running out of time, so I'm going to be a little bit brief here. The one I want to focus on is the knowledge agent, and I think it's something that all of you should go look at and make sure that you and your staff are aware of it. They've integrated with Microsoft's Chat GPT, and it now has access to the entire library of all Epicor knowledge. And instead of your user trying to go and read through articles, and I have the same frustration, right? I can't remember how to do something. I go research, I've got to scroll up and down through 50 articles until I find the right one that tells me what I'm doing. You can post natural language questions. I am trying to find out how to reverse a receipt so that I can fix the purchase order. And it will give you back a nice detailed, from what I've seen, really accurate answer to how to do that with links to underlying articles if you still need to see screenshots and things. So huge benefit there. Additionally, in the past, when you wanted to know the release notes, what changed, you had to go through and find all the PDFs, and I used to do this, and some of those change logs for a full release can be 1,000 pages long, right? So really hard to even keep a handle on what did improve. So what has happened now is these are all now completely online, built into the software. The fantastic thing is that you can search. So in this example on the screen, they're actually looking for changes to Application Studio, and you can go through and see all of the different releases, at least since 2023.1, where Application Studio was affected, right? So same thing would apply to purchase order entry, AR entry, business activity queries. It's essentially all there, searchable and easy to get to. And again, rather than downloading, gigabytes of PDFs and scrolling from document to document, simple keyword search gets all of the things you're looking for, so you can kind of go back and understand, hey, what did happen with PCIDs? Well, it's a long story. There's a lot of changes, but great tool, fantastic tool. Kind of looking at some of the reasons that we would move into the browser. And again, that's Epicor's direction. And you've got a little less than a year and a half now to make that transition and move away from the installed client into browser-based only. But essentially, all the new features that have come out since the end of Epicor 10, so all features during the Kinetic era, new functionality is only available in the browser version. Right? No, not on classic screens. And that was just a choice they made to not support the classic screen. So if you're still using the classic screens, you just need to understand you're missing functionality right now. And essentially, you've been paying for functionality for 4 years that your staff doesn't even know exists yet. So consider that as a reason to move into the browser. It's also a much more modern user interface. And particularly if you're trying to hire new staff who haven't been with you for 5-10 years, people like it. People just prefer it over the look of the old classic. And I used the classic screens for 15 years. So I definitely am a fan there. You have your anywhere access. Essentially, you can log into your system from any device anywhere on the planet. It's just browser based, right? Which means you can have much less investment in technology. It's so much easier for owners and sales team who are on the road. If you have employees who work from home, you don't have to worry about VPNs and all these the difficulties, right? And that's all been kind of eliminated because it's all there in the cloud. Speed and performance is great. And the customization side is really fantastic. And so I've had a number of customers in the last 6 months where with very minimal training, we showed them how to use Application Studio and they just went off running, adding screens, redesigning screens to make it more efficient, putting all the fields that their sales team needs right next to each other, making stuff mandatory, basically things where they used to have to come to an organization like Encompass. It's within your reach now, right? And I'm not a technical person, but even I've been able to get in and make some screen modifications. So really a lot of reasons to be looking at the browser if you're still kind of stalling on that. Kind of looking here, things that are in the browser only that came out in 2024. I'm just going to touch on the orange ones. So again, you've got your RFQ process improvements, automatic intercompany orders, simplified PCID shipments, dynamic time fence, promoting personalizations to customizations, being able to directly write SQL statements to build BAQs, all of the stuff, but you kind of see all of these different things on the screen are only available in the browser. Essentially, May of 2026 is when the smart client, the classic screens, are being officially retired. So that's kind of your time frame for planning. They've got a lot of tools to make that easier. Those of you who are on premise, 2025.2 is going to be the last release where the classic forms are even going to be included in the software, right? So just start making those plans and definitely reach out to us. We can help you manage the project and the transition, especially since you've got well more than a year. We'd be very happy to help guide that through for you. And in general, how do you get in touch with us? Our phone number's here. You can always email support@encompass-inc.com. You can go to our website. Ashley Limbers, who kindly hosted today's call, is fantastic. She can get in touch with you. You can scan the QR code from your screen. There's lots of ways to find us. Again, encompass-inc.com. I know we're almost out of time. We're going to go ahead and open things up for question and answer. But again, hopefully there's some questions along the way. If there are features that you would like to see, if it's operational, I'd love to get on a call with you and just kind of show you some of the things that got me excited about the new release. And if you're working on the finance side of things, we have a number of finance consultants who would also be delighted to sit down and just kind of show you what's there and how it might improve things for you.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, David. Just as David mentioned, if you do have any questions, please type those into the question box on your control panel. And we'll wait to see if we have any come in. We have dropped some links in the chat for some of the resources that David mentioned today. You can follow that link, and there's plenty of on-demand resources available to you. And then there's also a link for our upcoming events. So please take advantage of those. And David, I know that was a lot of information for everyone, and it looks like we do not have any questions at this time. But just as David mentioned, please reach out to myself or David or your CAM. We will send out an on-demand recording as well as the slide deck for you to share internally as well. David, was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we go today?
Yeah, I would just say, so if you go to the Epicor Learning Center, there should be video recordings of these new feature release things. So if you don't have time or don't want to reach out and get, a live meeting with someone to walk you through things, you can poke around on the Learning Center, search for the features we've talked about. And if they don't already have videos uploaded, they should be coming very soon. They used to do these touring, they'd go into a city and bring a bunch of consultants in or salespeople in, and everyone could go in and look at it. And it was really hard to get out and reach out to people. So they've been doing a lot better about recording just a screen demonstration of how it works, so you can kind of see the features in action and think about how it might improve things for you at your company.
That's a great point. Yep. And we can also help you locate those as well. If you're not able to, just send us an email. And I think that's all for today. We really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.